6 o'clock, we will call this meeting to order. Do a roll call to establish quorum. Where is my people? Trustee Simpson? Here. Trustee McGee?
Here.
Trustee Lewis?
Here.
Trustee Davis?
Here.
Trustee Martinez?
Here.
And Trustee Miller?
Here.
Chair is here. We have a quorum. That will take us to Pledge of Allegiance, led by Trustee Miller.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And that will take us to public comment. Do we have any public comment at this time? All right, seeing none, we will move on. Are we not doing good news?
There's no good news today.
No good
Nope.
news. Well, there's always good news.
Well, there's always
but-
good news, but we are doing the organizational side of things tonight,
Okay,
yes.
sounds good. So then we will go to the acceptance of the agenda.
I move to approve the Board of Education regular meeting agenda for July 13th, 2026 as presented.
Second.
Roll call vote. Trustee McGee?
Aye.
Trustee Lewis? Trustee Lewis?
Aye. I wasn't sure what you said.
Oh, sorry. Trustee Simpson?
Aye.
Trustee Davis?
Aye.
Trustee Martinez? Trustee Miller? And the chair votes aye. And we'll go into organizational items.
Okay, thank you, President Brooks. Trustees, good evening. Tonight, you know that the first section of the meeting tonight is our organizational items, which are our annual memberships, approval, designations, those sorts of things. So we will go through one by one. I will describe each one of them and make a recommendation, and then we will pause for discussion and vote. Okay? All right, so kicking it off tonight, first of all, is the designation of the 26-27 board meeting schedule, which is in your packet, and you saw it a few weeks ago. As we previously discussed, we made no changes to our typical second and fourth Monday board meeting schedule. We will have one meeting in March and in May, as the fourth Monday in March is spring break, and the fourth Monday in May is Memorial Day. As you know, December is also a one-meeting month due to the holiday break. I'll pause for any board discussion. Dr. Martinez?
I move that we approve, or we adopt the resolution designating the dates, times, and location of Board of Education meetings for the 2026-27 calendar year as presented.
Second.
It's going to be a long meeting. Roll call vote. Trustee McGee?
Aye.
Trustee Simpson?
Aye.
Trustee Lewis?
Aye.
Trustee Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Martinez?
Aye.
Trustee Davis?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
Okay, trustees, moving on, the establishment of our required board committees. The proposed board committees and committee meeting schedule remains unchanged, and a draft of that schedule is in your packet. Essentially, as you know, the proposed schedule mirrors this past year's schedule. Certainly, I will work with the policy committee to set and then publish the policy committee on an as-needed basis. I'll pause for any board discussion.
Any change requests?
Okay.
Okay.
I move that we establish standing board committees to include the Board Finance Committee, Board Policy Committee, Board Curriculum Committee, and Board Safety Facilities and Grounds Committee.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote. Trustee McGee?
Aye.
Trustee Simpson?
Aye.
Trustee Lewis?
Aye.
Trustee Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Martinez?
Aye.
Trustee Davis?
Aye.
And chair votes aye.
Trustees, designation of school legal counsel is next, and I recommend we continue our appointment of Troon Law as the district's legal counsel. Is there any discussion?
Have we reviewed anything else?
I have not gone out for any proposals from other law firms, no.
Tim and I did review someone else back, 2016, 17?
Yeah, whenever it was, yeah, a long time ago.
And pricing-wise, they were very comparable to Troon. And True knows the district kind of inside and out. Once we sat down and talked to them, we decided to continue with them. And it hasn't been reviewed since then, I guess is what I'm sharing.
I think Troon's the main legal counsel for most
They
school
are.
districts in the state,
Yeah.
right? There are like 2 others, I think.
This is
Yeah.
correct, yes.
And we're getting our policies from them.
And we get our policies coming in.
And, I mean, honestly, he's steered us through a lot. I think there's a lot of trust between us and them at this point.
I move that we designate Troon Law Firm to serve as the district's legal counsel as recommended.
Second.
Roll call vote. Trustee McGee?
Aye.
Trustee Lewis?
Aye.
Trustee Simpson?
Aye.
Trustee Davis?
Aye.
Trustee Martinez?
Aye.
Trustee Miller?
Aye.
And chair votes aye.
Okay, moving on, trustees. Next up is the designation of the district's auditors. Trustees, I recommend that we do continue our appointment of Manor Casterian to serve as the official auditor of the district. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, when was the last time we've ever had gone out for bid for our auditor?
That's a great question. It would have been prior to my time. I
Me
am
too.
not sure.
Prior to us.
I gotta say, the meltdown that we had last fall, I didn't feel like they were as forthright or as helpful as they could have been. That's just my opinion, being close, you were closer to it than I was, but I didn't see a lot of support. Here's the problems. Okay,
Well, that's their job as the auditor.
I get it, but I mean, clearly we're in distress. I mean, I know what the auditors are supposed to do, but they want to be customer service. Now, I don't know what they charge. Maybe they're a bargain, that's why it's bare bones, but.
Maybe separate type of auditing that we might need, generally if we wanted other services.
If we wanted to add audits, maybe bidding those.
Correct.
Yep, I think that's something that we could certainly discuss more in budget
Right,
and policy committees.
I'm not
Yep,
trying to bottle this up now, but there's just general discussion. I don't know that we've ever had, that's why
Sure,
auditing firm I remember.
Sure.
Going back to 2008 or 9, when I was
Sure.
assistant principal again.
well, and as I'm looking this way towards the trustees on the end, I'm catching Steve out of the corner of my eye with his hand. I feel like he's gonna help us out here.
Yeah, I understand your concern, Mr. Lewis. I think I would say that they've been very helpful this year in getting some things done for us and very supportive. I also would say that we're going to have a different team in auditing this year. The team that has been here the last several years they've had a couple new clients and they've shifted their clients around. So we're gonna have a new team in here looking at things that we'll be working with. Obviously, it'll be the first time we're working with them. But I felt the same way sort of, but I'd like to give it another year right now. I mean, we can get through this year. We still have time to get ready for next summer and make a change in January if we wish. I mean, so right now appointing them to work,
No, I'm not trying to stop this in the water right now. It's just general discussion. I don't know. I wouldn't think it would hurt to go out for bid and see what other people even charge. I don't know. I mean.
Yeah, and I don't know what other auditors are in this region of the state that, have people that they can get down here just because it might be harder to get to and the cost and effort to do all of that. So.
Gotcha.
I'll be honest with you, changing auditors is a real bear for the finance office because the new team will come in with a whole new set of eyes, which isn't bad. But all of your internal control, it makes you revisit everything you do to show them this is how we do things so they can look at them to make sure that our processes are catching everything that it's supposed to catch. It doesn't catch not managing our budget, but it catches the processes that we are going to have in place to take care of things. So they all should find those kinds of things. So I think I'm expecting things to go better this year.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Lehman. All right, so we've had the second.
We haven't done the motion yet.
Oh, sorry.
I move that we appoint the accounting firm Manor Casterian to perform the annual audit as recommended.
Second.
All right, first and second, roll call vote. Trustee McGee?
Aye.
Trustee Simpson?
Aye.
Trustee Lewis?
Aye.
Trustee Davis?
Aye.
Trustee Martinez? Trustee Miller? And chair votes aye.
Okay, trustees, next up is the designation of depositories, or our banks, and I recommend the continued use of West Banco and County National as the official depositories for the funds and accounts associated with the district. Any discussion?
I move that the below indicated agencies, West Banco and County National Bank, are designated as the depositories for the funds and accounts as indicated.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote. Trustee Miller? Trustee Martinez? Trustee Davis?
Aye.
Trustee Lewis?
Aye.
Trustee Simpson?
Aye.
Trustee McGee?
Aye.
And chair votes aye.
Moving on, trustees, the designation of signatories. I recommend the designated signatories for the district as Mr. Steve Lennar, Mrs. Amanda Clark, and myself. We will each be authorized to sign checks, make deposits, and do the business of the school district. Is there any questions?
I move that we adopt the resolution designating signatories as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote. Trustee Miller? Trustee Davis?
Aye.
Trustee Martinez? Trustee Simpson?
Aye.
Trustee Lewis?
Aye.
Trustee McGee?
Aye.
And chair votes aye.
Moving on, designation of electronic transfer officer. Trustees, I recommend the designation of Mr. Steve Lennar to serve as the official district electronic transfer officer.
I move that we designate Steve Lennar to serve as the district electronic transfer officer as recommended.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote. Trustee Miller? Trustee Martinez? Trustee Davis?
Aye.
Trustee Lewis?
Aye.
Trustee Simpson?
Aye.
Trustee McGee?
Aye.
And chair votes aye.
Okay, moving on, the authorization for superintendent to execute routine documents. Trustees, as you know, the superintendent is responsible for day-to-day administration and operation of the district. Throughout the year, routine contracts, grant applications, reports, service agreements, and other operational documents must be executed in a timely manner. This authorization allows the superintendent to sign and submit routine documents consistent with approved budgets, board policies, and applicable laws while preserving your right as a board and the board's authority over matters requiring specific board approval.
Any discussion? Okay.
I move that the Tecumseh Public Schools Board of Education authorize the superintendent to execute routine contracts, grant documents, state and federal reports, service agreements, and other operational documents on behalf of the district during the 2026-27 school year, provided such actions are consistent with approved budgets, board policies, and applicable laws.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote. Trustee Davis?
Aye.
Trustee McGee?
Aye.
Trustee Lewis?
Aye.
Trustee Miller? Trustee Martinez? Trustee Simpson?
Aye.
And chair votes aye.
Okay, trustees, the appointment of school administrator to assume responsibilities of the Board of Education secretary. I recommend the appointment of the administrative assistant to the superintendent to assume the duties of Board of Education secretary.
I move that we appoint the executive assistant to the superintendent to assume specified responsibilities of the board secretary as recommended.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote. Trustee Davis?
Aye.
Trustee McGee?
Aye.
Trustee Lewis?
Aye.
Trustee Miller? Trustee Martinez? Trustee Simpson?
Aye.
And chair votes aye.
Okay, moving on. The trustees, the next item is the named district coordinators. As you know, the state of Michigan requires us to name administrators to serve as coordinators or liaison in designated roles. So, Title VI of the Civil Rights Act will be Danielle Adamczak. Our Title IX coordinator will be Danielle Adamczak. Our Section 504 coordinator will be Lisa Shirk. Our ADA coordinator will be Danielle Adamczak. Our Age Discrimination Compliance Officer, again, will be Danielle Adamczak. Our McKinney-Vento Homeless Liaison will be Deborah Laney, and our FOIA coordinator will be Ty Smith. Any discussion?
I move that Tecumseh Public Schools Board of Education designate the superintendent and the following staff members to serve as the district's Title VI Coordinator, Title IX Coordinator, Section 504 Coordinator, ADA Coordinator, Age Discrimination Compliance Officer, McKinney-Vento Homeless Liaison, and FOIA Coordinator for the 2026-27 school year as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote. Trustee McGee?
Aye.
Trustee Lewis?
Aye.
Trustee Miller? Trustee Davis?
Aye.
Trustee Martinez?
Aye.
Trustee Simpson? And the chair votes aye. And that will take us into scheduled reports.
Okay, first up this evening, trustees, is the Policy Committee of last Tuesday, July 7th. We spent the majority of the Policy Committee regarding the annual Troon Policy Package update. I won't speak to that now, as that'll be on the agenda later this evening. So, we did have some other items on the agenda. The first one being, we talked about we came together as a policy committee to further our discussion around the fund balance that the board has been having some conversations in regard to. So what we talked about was our current policy, which is policy 3202. You can see the information up here on the screen. Our current policy relative to fund balance reads, the board's goal is to maintain an annual unassigned general fund balance of at least 12% of estimated expenditures. Part of the past discussions that we've had at the table and in committees is for the potential to change our policy to be in alignment with how the state measures fund balance, which is relevant to revenue, not expenditures. So a draft update to that policy would read, the board's goal is to maintain an annual unassigned general fund balance of at least 12% of estimated revenues. It's a simple move to estimated revenues. The committee is recommending it because it aligns with the state and how they measure. It's one standard, and it provides consistency for us as a board and how we measure it with the state and how we talk about it as a group. I will pause there for discussion, and certainly, Mr. Martinez, Ms. Brooks, if I missed anything, please add.
Well, no, I think one of the points we made in the committee too was that, you know, this stuff can be a little opaque and hard to follow for us at the table, and for public who are listening and trying to understand the decision-making, having these two standards just adds a layer of confusion, right? Everybody's trying to move between, well, if it's expenditures versus revenue, how much is the difference? Having one way that we talk about and think about this is good for us as a group, but I think it's also good for the public who are trying to understand both where the district's at and how we're making decisions. So I think it just adds clarity to what may otherwise be a pretty opaque topic for people.
Well said.
So when you say revenue, is what revenue? Is it all revenue, or is it unrestricted funds?
It's and Steve, help me out here for a sec. It's unrestricted revenues.
Okay.
I was going to say unassigned, but yes.
So can we change the wording to unrestricted?
Sure. Yep.
Because there's a big dollar difference between restricted and
Oh,
unrestricted.
for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, because that includes all our title dollars and
Right,
yes.
right.
That is not.
Right, because
Yeah.
that can go away just like that.
So
or
rather than
come back.
maintaining annual unassigned, maintaining annual unrestricted. Yes.
Right.
Well, I think the annual unassigned unrestricted, well, I guess unassigned and unrestricted are technically the same, or probably the same.
But we could, just for clarity,
Right.
use the language of unrestricted.
Right.
And that keeps us in line with the state verbiage,
Right.
which is what we've always looked at is, you know, we want to make sure we're staying out of the state's radar for what they consider a problem.
Right.
So being in line with what the state looks at, I think makes the most sense.
I guess for clarity for me, thinking of just like a homeowner, I can make a pretty good guess on what my expenses are. My revenue, if I just take an assumption that I'm not gonna get a pay raise, because you never know what it's gonna be, usually until, if you're forecasting ahead. In our case with the state, last year we went 4 or 5 months before we even knew what we had. So I guess that's where Steve comes in, you know, their crystal balls, smoke and mirrors, all that stuff, but it's, to me, it's more difficult. We can control spending of our own money, but to try and guess at what revenue is, the state of Michigan hasn't made that really, it really has made it a moving target. That's my only thought on it. I'm not saying this is wrong, but
Well, but then when we have those issues, so just like what we just did, right? So June, we passed a budget based on our best guess, and then once the state comes out, we update it. And we update the budget probably 2, 3 times, 4 times a year. So that's when you would update these as well, once you know that revenue.
I think it's a good point. I think another thing that we could do in June when we see the,
Your mic's not on.
thank you for telling me. I'm evidently colorblind today and can't see red and green. Thank you, Mrs. McGee. But, so I think when we do the budget in June, it might be helpful for us to see it as unrestricted based on the per pupil amount we currently get, and then on the estimate, just so that we know if there's a big swing or a big concern there.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead. Did you?
No, I didn't speak yet.
Okay. The only other question I have, though, is we've had some discussion, good discussion around what that percentage means from a, how much do we have set aside in the event of a problem? So 12% would mean we would cover about 1 month of school, essentially. I guess, is that what we feel of the general fund balance versus the previous kind of gave us maybe a better idea of how much of the expenditures we could actually cover based on that fund balance. So I don't know, that's just a discussion we've had before. I kind of feel like it's 2 different calculations, and
Oh, it's definitely 2 different
yeah,
calculations,
my math brain would want to see both,
Sure.
even if it's not in a policy. But I do think from a policy perspective, if it matches the state, then it matches what the state shows on my school data. And so then that, if we look at it purely from the public perspective, it's easier to align with what the state's saying.
Right.
But I think does this tell us what we need to know as a board to cover expenses, I think is another question.
Yep, and I can get that answer, trustees. It's a great question, and it's the question, if I've captured it correctly, is how many months essentially will 12% of revenues carry us for? Yep.
Yeah, we've been talking about this for a while now, and I understand changing it to align with the state language. That makes sense to me. But to Ms. Davis's point, just taking the same number and changing it from expenses to revenue doesn't really make sense. Just case in point, the proposal that we just approved for the next school year's budget, like we're almost at 9% for expenditures and almost 12% for unrestricted revenues, which almost makes it look like we're in the good, we're on pace, we're according to what we're, setting our expectations and goals to, but either that shouldn't be the goal, or I'm not really sure. And I'm still not sure that helps do anything for this organization as far as how we would manage, how we would make decisions, what we would cut off, what we wouldn't. I think this comes far short from what we need it to be, and we need to either pick different metrics, expand upon this differently, or just do something different, because just saying this is not going to be enough. So we either need some supplemental control documents in place, a higher number, maybe cash number in there, something else in here that helps better manage the business. And I think we have some pretty good experts in the house now, so maybe we can come up with some added items here.
Right, historically, we wanted the fund balance to be 15%. It just wasn't feasible to keep it there with everything that was going on, and that's when it came down to 12%. Could that change at some point in time? Of course, once everything's kind of cleaned up.
Yeah, but they said even at 15%, we're far below our peers, so
I don't. think
several of the
that's-
peers. I thought they were in the 20s, many of them.
There
maybe
may
even
be
the
a
state
few.
average. State average.
There's a lot of them that are just bumping above 5. It's kind of a mixed bag.
Yeah.
We probably fall in the normal range or average, would we?
Oh,
Matt, or
absolutely.
Steve, whoever at 12%, does that put us kind of right about the state median for fund equity?
Is it enough for what?
I said, is 12% kind of,
Is 12% about what the average school district in Michigan has? I mean, I know there's a spread there, but,
I think the average is up over 15 to 8, between 15 and 18%, I think now,
okay.
across the state on an average. There's a district I work with that has it almost a 40% fund balance.
How can you do that? I thought you're capped at 30. Is
Great finance. No, I think the state average has grown since COVID. I think
Okay.
for some districts, though, you still hear about financial difficulties that some districts are having. So when you give an average, that, you
Yeah.
get the high and the low of that. But my experience has always been between 12 and 14% generally will suffice for cash flow purposes, so we don't have to borrow. That becomes an important piece that I
Yep.
look at.
Absolutely.
Where does that get us? And with the summer tax collection here, that helps us, because you have to remember, in September, we don't get a state aid payment.
Right.
Otherwise, our state aid payment gets us through every month just about. And having a summer tax collection, that sort of takes place of that September state aid we don't get. So our cash flow right now is fine, but it's tight. We just looked at it today. Amanda said, can we pay bills this week? Let's look in the bank. We've got $750,000, then we have payroll on Thursday. I said, we have to wait till after Thursday to see how much money we have left. But then on Monday, the 20th, we get $2.4 million from the state of Michigan. So we'll probably get some checks ready, but we aren't gonna send anything out until next Monday, and we'll get through payroll to make sure payroll gets paid, because the total payroll thing is about $550,000 to $600,000. So, you're always looking when it gets, we're to a point where we're that close that we're looking at those kinds of things. So the fund balance is an interesting number. I look for cash flow during the year, and I don't know if there's any metric that I can give you as what the right thing is, but my experience has been at Holly for the last 30 years, if I'm between 12 and 14%, I'm usually okay for cash flow. And that's where I feel comfortable.
Yeah, I kind of back up Trustee McGee's point. I think, Mr. Lennar, you've been able to give us percentages and kind of where we're at versus the year in a little bit more of a visual fashion, but I think maybe the discussion, and I don't believe that the general fund balance percentage would ever tell us this, honestly, but for us to understand, like, when we talk about strategic plan and what that looks like from a building perspective, or if something major happens and we need to invest money in infrastructure or whatever, I think the budget committee should continue to kind of have the discussion about how do we see out into the future a little bit more. In my various experience on this board, I can't tell you that general fund balance really tells us we're safe or not. So I've sat on this board when it was said that it was 18, and I've sat on this board now and we're at 8 or 9, and so I feel like, and all the treasurers and other board members at all of those times have shared concerns about the future that maybe the general fund balance doesn't say. So I think the point of this policy, honestly, is just to align with the state, in my opinion, is to align with the state so that when our constituents see and families of the district see the general fund balance, they can understand that it aligns with the state, and they can, kind of see the same thing on my school data that we're reporting month by month.
I think the other thing to keep in mind, and I agree it aligns with the state,
So trustees, certainly I can take this discussion, I've taken some notes, and we can take it back to committee before we come back to the full board.
I don't need to come back to committee, I just had a question, that's
Okay.
a comment, that's all.
Okay, moving on, continuing on with the policy committee report. We discussed the audit, and some of the discussions at the board table is for, or past board discussion included the potential for a new policy for the board to receive study sessions prior to the formal presentation of the audit. So I developed a draft policy that reads, prior to formal presentation of the annual audit to the full board, the board president directs the superintendent to schedule study sessions with the external auditors for each board member. This would be added to policy 3202. Discussion ensued about what this meant for staff, and as long as the board is willing to do this in a way that we did it with our budget updates and log in virtually, it really was pretty smooth and easy to pull off. So I'll pause here for some discussion, but that was next on our policy committee agenda.
I just have one question on this. So when we went through it, I remember us going through the conclusion that, Matt, you handled it tremendously well, right? You came to us, but it wasn't documented that way.
Correct.
We were fortunate you did it, and we talked about that if there was no Matt, do we have it documented well enough to make sure that it would be handled that way for the next person?
Yeah.
Does this policy take care of it, or is that somewhere else?
No, this would do that.
Okay,
Yes, and thank you for that. I appreciate it.
okay.
Yeah.
Also understand, any policy that we make, another board can totally undo. But our goal here is to try and set policy that will be used going forward.
Yeah, I
But
think
it's
just for
a
the
vote.
official record, the discussions we had about the audit was kind of shared with certain officers, not all officers, and then not all board members. And in kind of a quick fashion, this would allow for everybody to have the same information for the annual audit, except maybe the president of the board, if something pops up, that's probably one person that the superintendent should speak to. But I really appreciated the budget ones. This was my first year not on a budget committee, and so it was helpful for me to kind of have that same walkthrough and be able to ask questions, that sort of thing. So I think this would be very helpful as well.
Time is usually crunched too, but if there is time even before the budget committee or whichever committee sees this first, or if anyone sees this first, just having a little bit of time to review it before the actual walking in and trying to read and digest it at the same time.
Yeah, for sure, and that's a good point, and that would be part of the process. As typical, you would get a draft
Okay.
of the actual audit. It is lengthy, but you would get it, and then we would do the study sessions.
Okay.
Moving on. Okay, next up, trustees, we had some lengthy, maybe not lengthy, but we had some discussion about the new NIL landscape in the state of Michigan for student athletes. This has come up a few times at the board table. I was able to connect with Troon and got some what I would call very large umbrella sort of oriented guidance in regard to what is now the MHSAA's approved policy permitting public school student athletes to profit from personal brand activities, PBAs, or NILs, name, image, and likeness, just as you see at the collegiate level. So it means things for us, and it means a new understanding of rules. There are restrictions, responsibilities, and so I'm going to take you through these just as a large board discussion. I will tell you up front that this short presentation you're going to see is aimed at the board level. John has this as our athletic director, and he and I are tailoring this to specifics. It'll be the same, but it'll look more in depth, particular for our student athlete and parent orientation session, as well as our coaches sessions, as well as meetings with boosters, things of that nature. But this is for the Board of Education as an audience, okay? So, you know, a personal brand activity is a situation in which a student athlete promotes or endorses a product or service in exchange for compensation. That compensation can be money, it can be other things of value, it can be fees to something, it could be a gift, and it comes in the form of any of those things, and it doesn't matter if it relates to athletics or not. So we could have student athletes being paid to promote a bank, if you will. So there are some limitations that I want you to be aware of as a board. There's no school branding whatsoever. This means that our student athletes cannot use school names, cannot use the MHSAA, logos, trademarks, mascots, et cetera, or imply in any way, shape, or form school endorsement. That means they cannot be in their uniforms. They cannot wear a Tecumseh pullover, that sort of thing. There is no pay for play. Compensation cannot be tied to performance and statistics, enrollment at a particular school, or retention. And another way to say enrollment and retention is recruiting. Cannot be used to recruit. There's no PBA during school events, meaning during school hours, student athletes are not able to participate in any sort of promotional activities. They would benefit from a PBA in a partnership with a local bank, for instance. And there's no inappropriate industries. And the MHSAA has defined those as gambling, alcohol, tobacco, cannabis, banned substances, etc. Literally, etc. So there's some nebulous around what is actually an inappropriate industry. And then lastly, school facilities are off, and property is off limits to earning PBA compensation for student athletes. There are some disclosures that are required should one of our athletes secure a PBA. The first one, there is a 7-day disclosure requirement that the MHSAA has through an official form that the student athlete and parent must disclose themselves, not us, disclose themselves to the MHSAA regarding terms, payment amounts, products received, agreement duration, and activities to be performed, as well as then a post-secondary eligibility. This means NCAA eligibility disclosure, meaning the student athlete and the parent themselves are solely responsible for determining the effect of the PBA on NCAA eligibility, as well as any tax obligations, local, state tax, federal law. There are some penalties for non-compliance. The first one for the student athlete is that they could be rendered ineligible by the MHSAA for not less than 90 scheduled school days. School personnel could be suspended from interscholastic competitions for any length of time based on the severity and circumstance of the violation as determined solely by the MHSAA. And member schools could face a suspension of membership for any length of time, including for the actions of an associated entity or an individual. An associated entity could be a booster group. An individual could be an individual donor, and there's a threshold of $10,000 over 4 years that you cannot pass over, $10,000 within 4 years. But those are things that we, as a school district, also have to watch for in terms of our children participating in this. I probably should have said up front, trustees, I apologize. We don't have any of this going on right now. But we are preparing for it in the event that it could land at our doorstep at some point in time. And if and when it does, we want to have a plan. So what are we doing now? This really is an education effort, and we're educating our coaches, our athletic staff, our administrators, our parents, our boosters, our student athletes, and our community members on the limitations so that they understand the limitations on school involvement, their involvement, the restrictions on NIL, and the PBA disclosure obligations that parents and student athletes have. I know it's a lot. And it's high-level guidance because this is new and there's no specific cases, and we don't have any here either. So this is a high-level overview. If it comes, we will certainly seek more guidance as we go along, but I wanted to, there's been discussion at the board, and so I wanted to report out on it to you here. What are your questions?
I don't have a question, but I can tell you none of that's gonna hold up in court. Okay? I mean, last I checked, this is America, people could do what they want. And MHSAA is crazy to even bring this stuff out. So if someone's gonna pay an athlete, they're gonna pay him. And they're gonna win in court, okay? So it's America, that's how it works. And I just think this is ridiculous. So it's ridiculous, so.
I mean, that is the path the NCAA found themselves going down
Yeah.
eventually, too.
Yeah, they had to go back, I think, to 2017 and pay everybody, so this is ridiculous. So MHSAA is making something out of nothing, and, you know, it's no different than, let's say, okay, I got the golf team, I'm out of the golf course, and I take a picture and post it on Facebook, and I get more likes, and maybe someone became a member because of it. Well, does that mean that those kids are now part of this NIL thing? You know, do I gotta pay? I mean, come on, this is ridiculous, so this is just a waste of time, so I'm sorry. All it's doing is putting more on the schools.
Certainly is.
To monitor this, and that's not our job. We are not in this business. We're in our business of education, and we got some sports teams and arts and music, but we're not in the job of this NIL stuff, so, yep. And neither should be the NCAA, but that's just my opinion. So, there, I'm off my soapbox.
But to follow that, so that we don't end up in some frivolous activity, how are we, it sounds like Mr. Sajak is working through some things, so those requirements will not be in the handbook. So we will eventually need some addendum to the handbook. But things such as a student does NIL, maybe for something that could be construed in that et cetera category of type of business, but on their Twitter account or TikTok account, they have the Tecumseh logo. How, you know, I think those are things we need to talk about, not just for NIL, but in general, use of social media by middle school athletes even is increasing with, quite frankly, sometimes inappropriate background music movements, and they are wearing their school's image and likeness.
Yep.
And so, you
But
know.
Lynn, we're a public entity, you know? It's no different than someone walking around wearing the seal of the President of the United States and doing the same thing.
Well, but I think
It's
from-
a public, it's a public
I understand that, but
item,
I think
so.
from a reputational standpoint.
Well, I understand that too, but you
Yeah.
can't stop somebody from doing that. We're a public entity.
No,
They
no, I
can-
understand that,
yeah.
but we can give some recommendations, because they are
Well.
young people who, some have strong guidance from other adults, coaches and that should be strong guidance as well. So I don't want to lock everything down, because that's silly. That doesn't allow them to do what other schools are doing or what other athletes are doing, but I think we could, even as we talk about, AI for academics, how do we want to teach them how to use it? Kind of same thing. We are part of the preparation team for them for their lives longer than just high school. And so how do we maybe want to share about social media and those types of things? I know that Mr. Sajak and the coaches have already started doing that. I think in the last orientation session that we went to for fall sports, there was some discussion of it. But, how do you, this is a lot for, I'm less worried about the school district and more worried about the student or the individual and the family if they're not savvy about this. And so, but I understand, it's just like AI usage. It's very ethereal right now and hard
Right.
to,
Yep.
hard to place down. But I think social media, sometimes they could get into trouble with that.
Oh, for sure.
Especially in certain disciplinary situations, it could be utilized against them. So it's just something to maybe, let's think about and be prudent but not draconian about it.
Thank you, Trustee Davis. I've got it, education of our student athletes in social media. So trustees, there were one last report within the policy committee. There was some lengthy discussion at the end. It wasn't actually on the agenda, but there was some lengthy discussion at the end regarding the use of technology and teaching and screen time and the research that has been coming out in regard to it and the implications of what that could mean both for teaching and learning, student learning, and how we might lead that as a board and then within the teaching and learning department or curriculum instruction and assessment. And so we had some feelings in there about things that we think are working and things that we could do better, and we agreed that that was going to be one of the main topics of our next policy committee meetings. Would either of you add to that?
Yeah, I mean, this is a topic I've brought up a couple times that, you know, as we've adopted technologies, you know, the Chromebooks and the screens into the classroom, there's been a long enough period of time now that we are seeing the outcomes. And, you know, not just in Michigan, but nationally, you know, decreased reading scores, decreased retention. And, you know, this kind of fits with what we know about learning and how people engage and actively learn. I think it is time to take a step back and to look at those processes and look at the things that lead to the outcomes that we want for our students. And my feeling is that the Chromebooks and the screen time are an impediment to that. And there are, you know, districts both in Michigan and across the country now that are pulling back from that, returning to book and paper learning, because the evidence supports that kids learn better that way. They retain more, they become more effective readers, and you know, I understand the appeal of convenience in it, but I think the product the student gets out the other end is being compromised.
Well said.
Well, you know, I all love tech, but I think that maybe the committee and the superintendent need to go visit a school that doesn't have any tech in it and then see what's up. I mean, we can see a real world situation, because I agree with you. I think the screens need to go. So there's certain situations where you know, you got to teach a kid how to use Excel or Word or, you know, or program. Okay, yeah, they need them for that, but but for all day long, every day, yeah, it's not good. So no, it's not good. But
I agree. I think visiting a district that's making this move would be useful for us, and you know, getting some sense of both what they're doing now and how that transition took place, right? Because we've got, I mean, our system is entirely built around the Chromebooks at this point. I mean, there's going to be work to undo that, and getting some guidance from those who have done it is probably a good way to think about this.
When you look at the Mississippi Miracle, they talk about, interesting, in 2000, right after the 21st century, Michigan ranked 8th in the nation in education. It was higher than that when I moved back here in 1988. People are like, why would you want to go to Michigan and teach? Well, number one, I'm from there. Number two, we have an excellent education system. And number three, our pay for the cost of living adjustment, we were in the top 10 for that too. So everything was good. It's fallen off, and so I start looking at the Mississippi Miracle, and I was fortunate to catch a broadcast on the radio about it, and they had a guy on there. And I didn't know what they were talking about at first. I heard him talking about screen time. I think, screen time, who's that? Oh, screen time, you know, the accent. But I wasn't paying attention to what it was about but that perked my ears up when they were talking about it. That was one of the things they limited out of all their elementary schools, right away. And one of their patterns for that was Highland Park, Texas, which is where my grandsons went. And Highland Park is one of the top 10 public schools in the nation almost every year. They took all that stuff, and they have screens, but you only use them in school. I went down there a few years ago for Grandparents' Day, 3 times, and they just have racks of them, not even with your name, just like classroom sets, and you're allowed to use them for certain projects. Science classes was part of it, especially for the elementary kids, because they could watch, or they could basically do science experiments and virtually look at it. You know, is it going to happen to be A, B, or C, walk through it? I thought it was pretty cool. But that's about all they had. They were not assigned a Chromebook. They had textbooks. And that's one of the better places. I mean, it's also affluence and all that other stuff. But I mean, that's the place. The first place to get out of it was San Mateo, California, right in the heart of Silicon Valley. Said our kids' test scores are going down. The argument when they were talking on the radio is, well, kids, we've got to make sure they understand technology. And the guy says, most of the kids before they can even read and write have got a parent's old phone or a tablet or whatever, and they're using it, so they understand how it works, but can they glean information out of it? And so they're trying to spin that around. And the 2 states who have really come the fastest and the furthest and the fastest are Mississippi and Louisiana, and they're doing almost the exact same thing.
Yeah,
The tech giants kind of sold us a bill of goods, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, yeah, kids do. They need to learn how to use the technology that's a part of our lives. I agree. I mean, there's enough of it that they probably have learned at home before they get here, right? But I think as a school district, what we should be looking at is, hey, can our kids read a book and retain that information and have an understanding and a thoughtful discussion about it? You know, that is that robust base of knowledge that they can then carry forward wherever they go, right? And I think we as a district should be refocusing on that.
It felt at one point like that was the evolution, right? We were getting away from these things and we were progressing. And I think COVID kind of put a fine point on that, where we had to utilize it. But I also think that was an opportunity that showed us how it's not actually the evolution that we were looking for. It's more of a de-evolution. Matt actually has shared a story talking about the reading comprehension and how important that is. And if you wouldn't mind sharing it with the board.
Sure.
I just think it highlights exactly what we're talking about.
Sure. So, trustees, first of all, everything you're sharing certainly resonates with me. And the story that President Brooks is prompting me for is, it's been a minute now, but it was a while ago, and I had taken over as building principal, and it was one of the Ann Arbor's most at-risk buildings, and our reading and writing scores were not good, and we made a very intentional decision that we were not going to ignore science and social studies. We were going to do that, but we were going to put our time and energy into teaching reading and math, and in particular bring it together in the way kids learned to write and express themselves. And the long story short, the deal I made was I was going to be left alone for 3 years, and we were going to go do this as a building. And at the end of those 3 years, our scores had significantly jumped in the areas of reading and math and writing. In particular, we were outperforming some of the more affluent schools. That was never the point, right? But when we did that and we made the intentional decision to kind of hone down all these things into we're going to do this, we saw a pretty significant result, and it was pre-COVID. It did not involve the Chromebooks in the way that we know it to be today, and it was rolling, and then COVID hit, and then COVID hit.
Right.
So I would agree. And I would agree, and I think your suggestion, Mr. Simpson, to visit some school districts, I think that is an excellent suggestion, and I would even put out the possibility that a trustee or two would come along.
That'd be great. I see it in my own grandkids, that reading comprehension, they'll read, but the understanding, because they're just trying to get through it. And that's what we need to get them back to the comprehension point.
Okay. I
Yeah.
do. Yep. Trustees, Bresser and Brooks, thank you.
Thank you.
That wraps up the policy committee. And Mr. Lennar, treasurer's report.
Patiently waiting.
Good evening. We want to cover a couple of things tonight. First of all, the treasurer's report, the item on the agenda. You have that before you. I do want to point out that we did have a third payroll in June. One of the issues that we were dealing with is that our administrative group's payrolls didn't run July to June like Matt's and other administrators, and so it's always off a month. And we wanted to get that in sync so that we paid off their contract in June, so now they're on a July to June basis with other 12-month administrative employees. So that's what that extra payroll was for. Beyond that, there's really nothing exciting on the report. You've got the expenses that were paid out with that. What we don't have for you this evening is a revenue and expenditure report for the month. And that is for a couple of reasons. We could give you an expenditure report, but it would be minus the revenue report. There's nothing wrong with them. It's just that in getting the revenues in this month, we were training Amanda. She didn't do anything wrong, but in getting the process done, they uploaded it and something didn't work last week. And the ISD was closed down for support, and we couldn't get anything to unlock it to get, the numbers are in there. I know what the numbers are for the month and how much revenue we brought in, and things are where they're supposed to be. It's just that the system wouldn't recognize it, and you would have got a revenue report with no revenues in the month of December. I can tell you we deposited about $3 million in June. For the month of June from the ISD and other payments and things. So there's really nothing that we're missing there, except as soon as we get that, we were hoping to get it fixed today when they were back, but I'm sure they were catching up with emails and a lot of other things and didn't get back to us, and so we don't have that. My hope would be that we would have that before the end of the week, and when we do, we can get those reports out to you. Again, there's nothing that we're missing or hiding from you in not giving them to you this evening. I will tell you that I looked at all of the expenditures and tried to forecast where we are, and things are looking better than we had expected, or about where I had thought they would be. But we don't have any final numbers for you, because another thing that I learned, I learned a lot of new things in this job. Things I thought I knew that every day you learn something new, even after 50 years. No one told me that Deb, who does our payroll and has done a great job in keeping us afloat this year, had ever been trained on how to do the year-end accrual. And then the ISD is closed down, and I said, how are we doing on the accrual? So I don't know how to do it. So, well, I don't know how to run the payroll in this system either. So we're getting some help, and we'll get that done. We know where our accounts payable are and things. So we're building the plane as we fly it still a little bit, but we're in I believe pretty good shape. In pretty good, it's above average in terms of where we've been, I think, in the past. In terms of budget management, things are coming in where they're supposed to be. So I'm not surprised by a lot of those things, but it's just some of those things just didn't come together at the year end like they hoped they would, and it's no one's fault. But we'll get it together. Okay. So the one thing that I did want to expound a little bit on is, since our last meeting with the budget hearing, we didn't have a state aid bill. Since then, we have a state aid bill. And you're sitting there saying, well, what does that mean for us? And so I want to give you a quick little synopsis of what I believe it means for you. And so so that I don't lose people when there's a lot of numbers on a report, I outline them with lines and put box numbers so that if you have a question, you can tell me which box you're asking so that you won't get lost on this. But we're going to go numerically down the boxes. The first box is pretty simple. We had estimated a $250 increase in the foundation grant to take us to $10,300, and that's what the state aid bill came in at, so no changes there. Nothing that we're going to see. When we get to box 2 with enrollment stabilization, there's a slight difference, and I want to qualify that because when you look in the state aid budget, you see 150,000 3-year average HFA estimate. And you say, what's HFA? Look down at the bottom. It's House Fiscal Agency. And the House and the Senate both have a fiscal agency. And their role is nonpartisan, and their role is to take legislation, take the state aid bill, run the numbers that they have, and give it to the representatives and the senators to say, this is how it's going to affect the districts. And people in certain areas can see the districts that are in their representative area, so they can see what it does to their school district. What they're doing it on is on current information. They didn't know that we've estimated an 80 student drop for next year. So when we look at this, we had projected using the old formula, which was pretty much a 2-year average, and using that, we estimated that we might see about 200,000. Now, on this district-by-district report that the House Fiscal Agency put out, it shows us it's 151,000. I just rounded off to 150. And there's a new way of doing it with a 3-year average, and it would mean that we would get 50,000 less. I think when all is said and done, if we lose the 80 students and it works its way into the formula, we'll see this number improve from where it is because they don't know what we're planning on. They don't have that kind of data of where we're headed. They only can go based on the numbers from last year, and looking back the way they would calculate it, they wouldn't know what's going to happen this year. So I'm not too worried about that one. Actually, I'm not worried about any of these, quite honestly.
So are they going to use this current year as well as the 3-year average?
The way it reads is well, if we go into the pages behind it and we look at the last page, page 4, number 10, pupil count. We can count our members using, we have a choice now, the greater of the current year of what we would get this fall, or we can take a 3-year average, which is the 2 prior years, which I'm assuming are 24-5 and 5-6, and do it with the current year. The only problem with this formula doing it that way, until with the schools of choice and the way kids can move, we don't really almost have a final student count until almost April. So the number is going to be fluctuating all year based on the way kids move through districts through February. But the way it's designed, in the long run, it should do better. We should do better by it because our prior 2 years, this could give us possibly an additional 40 students. Even if we lost 80, it would only look maybe like 40. But they haven't put that into their formula because they don't know that. So that's why I believe it will be bigger. The only thing I don't know is how much money they plan on putting behind it so it's not prorated. So there's a lot of questions that I can't answer for you, but that's basically how we're looking at it. So at this point in time, I'm using a documented number by a more powerful being than I am, the House Fiscal Agency. And I have to use their number because that's the best number I can give you. I'm sure that there will be smarter business officials than me that will come up with how this is going to work, and I'll find a formula of how it's done, and we'll work it out. But you've got to remember, we're 10 days into getting a state aid bill, and I don't even think the governor signed it officially yet. But that's where we are. The third box is a huge shift, and it's going to be a permanent shift, and it's going away from the what's formerly known as Section 31A of the State Aid Act, at risk, and we're using a weighted pupil formula. And what that is taking into account is at risk generally is economically disadvantaged students, and then it's also including the bilingual part or the non-English language speaking students. And generally what would happen with those two groups, because of those tags we put on them, that they have different learning needs and it takes more to get to them, and so they should get, the districts that have a higher economically disadvantaged population should get more than everyone else. Why should we get the same amount as Northville? Or why should Northville get the same amount as we would? You know, Northville doesn't need the money, you could argue. So anyways, so don't even try and have me explain this one, but on the next page, item 2, there's different bands of economically disadvantaged kids, and different kids with English language learning. They have a WIDA skill. I don't know what WIDA stands for, but there are ways to calculate those kids. And when you're in these different bands, obviously the higher the band, the higher the economically disadvantaged percentage of students that you have in your district. And so that student counts as a larger number. So we will find a formula out on this and find out where we stand, because I'm not sure which band we're in. This is also being codified by Senate Bill 903 that will eventually get, I think it's been passed, the governor has to sign it, that codifies this into law, so at risk goes away, and this formula will become one of those new formulas that people like geeks like me like to get into, and it'll give us a better way to calculate it going forward. And it has an escalator built into it for the next 10 or 15 years to increase the percentage that of that weight that those kids will get paid. So it sort of keeps up with, or tries to catch up with, eventually its intent of inflation or what the true cost is, but they couldn't go from 0 to 100 in 1 year. So it's got quite a few years, I think almost 10 years of a folding into that. The good news is the House Fiscal Agency thinks that we're going to get about $1,750,000 out of this pot of money. And at risk, we received this past year $1,466,000, so it's $284,000 more. Now again, if you look at the pages behind in this, in order to get this, we must comply with different things. We must implement an MTSS, multi-tier support system, I think that stands for, in all grade levels. We need to identify MySIP, which are some kind of instructional, Matt's the expert on that, but it has something to do with the needs of the kids. We have to, we can use 2% for administrative costs. And there's some reporting that we have to do, just like we have to do with at risk. But it gives us a little bit more leeway than what we've had. And there's more communication with the parents. But for $284,000, we can make that happen. And so that's a positive for us. Megan Missway knows about this. Until we really see more guidance from the Department of Education, you know, we're not going to just go out and put something in place right away, but we're going to have to figure this one out, but we need more information. But it's a positive. It gives us more to cover some of those costs that in some cases might be already paid by the general fund, and so we have to see how we can make that work going forward. I believe it will reduce some of our general fund costs, which basically frees those costs that they're currently budgeted for to pay for other things, and we'll get that later tonight. Box 4, we're going to go back to 31AA. It's not all bad, it's not great, but what they've done is they've put it into 2 buckets now. They've put the mental health into one bucket, and they're going to fund that at just over $73 per pupil. And they're going to put the student safety in another bucket and do that at $147 a pupil. They got smart this year, because last year, remember the fiasco, how we had to decide if we're in or out because of the language for giving up our attorney's rights? Well, all the districts that opted out, there were only so many left, and it didn't give a dollar amount. It just said, here's 300 million, divided between the schools that participate. Districts went from $500,000 or $600,000 to $3 or $4 million in this funding, because that's the way the law was written. This year, it's the same dollar amount. It's still 300 million, but they've put limits on what you can get depending on who applies for it and doesn't. What will happen with this is that there are not any restrictions on the mental health bucket. And so my recommendation would be that we would sign up for that and take the 170,000. It can be used for a school nurse. That's what we've used some of it for in the past, is our school nurse and health services. So instead of having to pay that out of at-risk, like we're going to have to do some kind of shift this year to possibly, reduce at-risk services or do something to keep the nurse and health services going. And so this money alone will help do that and actually free up more money in at-risk for us also. So it's a positive for us when we look at that. From what I can tell, and again, when you go to the back pages and you look at page, where is it? I guess it'd be the third page in your staple. It's number 4, school mental health. The student safety still has, we have to agree to a state investigation following a mass casualty event and agree to waive any privilege held by the district, which tells me that's the legal side that we didn't agree with last year. So I haven't seen the official language, but I would say that probably is something that we most likely won't consider again. I'm not sure, but there'll be some kind of buy-in window that we'll have to let them know. The good thing is we know about it now versus October.
Right.
So we have more time to find out what it means and everything with that way. The box 5 is they came back with some educator compensation money for us to use to pay funds that have not been negotiated yet. And we sold some property and so we're there. So when you take all of this just on the basics, I think there's between $150,000 and $200,000 easily that we'll see as a positive growth in revenues, of unrestricted revenues, let me put it that way, in the general fund. And so that's good. And it really has nothing to do with any of our expenses, because many of the things that this will do are things that we've already planned on have in our budget that we plan to do. This just gives us different ways to pay for them. So that's positive. I will tell you the 3 pages that are attached to this were not written by me. They were written by a former superintendent who's now the chief or head lobbyist for the West Michigan Advocates Group, which is, I believe it's Kent, Muskegon, and Ottawa County lobby group. A very smart gentleman, almost as smart as Mr. Hilton. But this gentleman follows the school law and understands it, and he puts this out for the West Michigan Advocates, and I just happen to get stuff from them at times from friends and contacts that I have, so it pays to have friends in places. So I think it's a great little read. It helps you understand a little bit more than what you'll see anyplace else probably right now. Don't get into a lot of questions because I don't have a lot of answers for it, but it gives me a better understanding of what I think is happening with it also. So the good news is we have a state aid bill much earlier than last year. It's better for us than where we thought we would be. We just don't know exactly how much. I can guesstimate where I think it's going to be, but that's, I guess, the point I wanted to get across.
Any questions for Mr. Lennar? Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Okay, trustees, moving on to discussion items. First up tonight is the food service renewal. And trustees, you know this, but each year the state of Michigan does require an annual approval of the district's food service contract. As you might remember, we actually renewed our agreement for 5 years with Aramark back in the summer of 2024. So tonight's approval simply ensures the district maintains eligibility to participate in federally funded meal programs, confirms that food service operations remain in compliance with applicable regulations, and authorizes the continued provision of meal service to students for the 2026-27 school year. Again, this is simply an annual requirement, and the state of Michigan does require board approval. Nothing has actually changed within that 5-year contract with Aramark. Is there any discussion?
Have we gotten all the money back for free lunches from last school year, from the state?
For free lunches from the state and the
The 100% free lunch program?
do you know the answer to that?
Was it, have we received 100% of all of the funding?
Yes.
I think we still have a state payment coming in for the month of May yet because of the timing
Okay.
of the federal claim going in, and by the time it hits the state cycle, them knowing how many meals we have a little bit, but we've been getting all of the funds.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, next up is the Troon annual policy updates. Let me move myself and get organized here. Okay, so trustees, 'tis the season for Troon's annual policy update package. I shared these with you in the middle of last week, and my intention is tonight, or well, I'll start by saying a couple things. First of all, I want you to know there are no new policies as a part of tonight's package update. Some of the policies have language updates to them with no board choices, while some of them have some board choice updates that the policy committee has already seen and made recommendations. So what I'll do tonight is if there are choices, I will put them up on the screen. If there's no choices, I will just speak to each policy. I will share the recommendation of the committee, and then I'll pause for discussion. You will not vote tonight, so any discussion can inform our next steps. Sound okay? Okay, so there are quite a few of them, so here we go. Policy 2202, which is the authority to enter into contracts. So, trustees, there is an optional section that would formally add to the policy that the superintendent is authorized to make purchases within budget allocations subject to policy 3301, which is the regulations for purchasing and procurement policy that we already follow. The recommendation of the committee is to adopt the optional section G, which reads, subject to bidding requirements, see policy 3301 and policy 3301A, the superintendent is authorized to make purchases within budget allocations. It's an interesting addition to me because it is something that we already do. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, the next policy is 2406, board officer duties. There's no board choices. The policy simply reflects a language update to include a new, what they're calling chain of command provision to address situations where one or more board officers are absent or otherwise unable or unavailable to perform their duties. So as an example, if Secretary Martinez was unavailable for an evening or could for some reason not perform his duty as signatory, the guidance would be that President Brooks then appoints a temporary secretary. Any discussion? Policy 2501, meetings. There are two optional provisions for the board to consider. The board has intentionally left blank the section I, parliamentary procedures section. And the new section K option addresses electronic communications of board members. So I'm going to start with section K. Specifically, It reads, all electronic communications among board members, including but not limited to emails, instant messages, text messages, and social media posts, must comply with the Open Meetings Act. A quorum of the board may not use electronic communication to deliberate on or decide matters of public policy. A board member may use electronic communication to communicate with administrators and other district personnel regarding matters such as meeting availability and proposed agenda items. The recommendation of the committee is to adopt Section K as written, as well as to revisit Section I and add the parliamentary procedure to be provided in Robert's Rules of Order, provided the procedure is consistent with board policy and law. I'll pause for discussion. Okay, hearing none. Policy 3102, smoking, tobacco products, drugs, and alcohol. There are actually 4 sections here, sections B, C, D, and E, and I will walk them through you. 3102. There are optional choices. So the first one in section B, the past choice of the board is option 1. So it reads, the district prohibits the sale, possession, distribution, dispensation, display, promotion, consumption, or use of tobacco products, tobacco-related devices, electronic nicotine delivery systems, or imitation tobacco products on property owned or operated by the district and at any district-related event. The recommendation of the committee is to keep section B as is. Section C, there is a new optional section. This is where the board would make a choice. The district prohibits the sale of possession, distribution, dispensation, display, promotion, consumption, or use of any products containing CBD on property owned or operated by the district and at any district-related event. The superintendent or designee will consider exceptions to this prohibition. The recommendation of the committee is to accept as is the optional C2 and add that to our policy. Section D is alcohol. The use, trustees, you already have this as is. I won't read the whole thing to you. There's no changes here, and the committee recommends no changes. Section E, there is an optional E4 to use or possess a tobacco product on district premises at outdoor areas included but not limited to an open-air stadium during either of the following time periods: Saturdays, Sundays, 6 p.m. on days in which there's regularly scheduled hours. The committee's recommendation is that we do not adopt E4 and keep our campuses smoke-free. Any discussion? Okay, 3108, service animals. There's no board choices to consider. The addition to the policy is just simply a language update in section J, which involves service animals and training, which we already practice. Moving on, 3115, non-discrimination, anti-harassment, and non-retaliation. Trustees, there are no board choices to consider, and this includes all policies within the 3115 umbrella. The updates are simply related to the legal authority per state and federal law changes. 3301A, oh, I'm sorry, stop me if there's questions, I'll just keep moving. 3301A, purchasing and procurement with federal funds. Again, no board choices. The update reflects the district's ability to increase the purchase threshold per the state of Michigan bidding threshold, subject to policy 3301, where for us in the Tecumseh Public Schools, we set that bidding process at 50% of the state threshold. 3303, gifts and donations. There is an optional and it is new, an optional soliciting donation section for the board consideration. It reads, the district may solicit donations in accordance with the law, which may include pursuing an exemption from registration under the Charitable Organizations and Solicitations Act. Any individual wishing to solicit donations on behalf of the district must obtain prior written approval from the superintendent or designee before representing any affiliation with the school district. Unless otherwise agreed by the superintendent or designee, the individual will be responsible for all costs and liability related to the solicitation, and all received donations will become district's property. The recommendation of the committee is that we do adopt Section B, soliciting donations. The best example that I have of this is, in the most recent, is actually Daisy, who has a QR code, district property. The funds are under district control and are used in support of the animal. 3304, use of district property. Again, we already have this policy. The update simply reflects some changed language definitions of student groups to be consistent with policy 5507, extracurricular activities, which we will talk about here in a minute. And again, there's no board choices. 3306, construction bidding. Again, no board choices. This policy was revised to clarify specifically that competitive bidding is required under section 1267 of the revised school code for improvements and services in addition to traditional school building construction, which tells me that there was a lawsuit somewhere that they are now being specific about section 1267 of the revised school code. 3402, drills and reports. There's no board choices. The policy simply removed a section in reference to repealed laws from legal authority. Policy 3407, asbestos management. The committee recommends that Tecumseh Public Schools Director of Operations and Facilities continues to be the legal authority for asbestos management in the school district. In other words, Mr. Madison. 3410, opioid antagonists. There are no board choices. The board has already adopted this policy, and the policy simply reflects updated language in the law. 4101, non-discrimination. Again, no board choices. The update reflects legal authority. 4104, employment complaint procedure for allegations implicating civil rights. Again, no board choices. The update reflects legal authority. You're noticing I'm saying the same thing over and over. That is on purpose because this is how this works. 4113, Michigan Earned Sick Time Act. Trustees, you might remember this. We adopted this policy last year as part of their package with the change in state law. This policy is required as we do employ more than 10 people, and there's no changes at this time for this policy. 4201, employee ethics. The committee recommends no changes, and the update simply reflects legal authority. 4205 AG1, criminal justice information security, non-criminal justice agency. Trustees, this policy is really about Ms. Adams-Ack and her ability to run background checks and use all of the state databases. The update simply reflects legal authority. 4209, abortion referral and assistance. This policy reflects legal authority changes. And now 4210, drug and alcohol free workplace and tobacco product restrictions. There's one optional addition to this policy: the option to use or possess tobacco products on district premises at outdoor areas. The committee recommendation is to decline the optional addition and keep our campuses tobacco free at all times. 4216, personal communication devices. The board has the option in section G. Unauthorized, these are personal communication devices of employees, parents, etc. Unauthorized recording of communications or images of students, parents, coworkers, or non-public meetings is prohibited. They did add the option unless there is an educational purpose to do so and may result in discipline, including discharge. The recommendation of the committee is that we do not adopt that option. 4508, administrator non-renewal. This simply updates, the update reflects legal authority. 4602, which is hiring. There's no board choices. The update reflects the clarification. Let me make sure I get this right. The update reflects the clarification that the board may consider any relevant factors as determined by the board when hiring a superintendent. So I believe that you set your matrix and you get to define what that is. 5209. So the board, trustees, this policy is in reference to changes within the cell phone policy, and which is now law in the state of Michigan. So the board has two options. Option one permits students to use wireless communications devices at school except during instructional time. So this could mean passing between classes, this could be lunch, those sorts of times. Option two prohibits students from using wireless communication devices at school except under limited circumstances, including medically necessary devices as required in a 504 plan or IEP, a district-owned device, or designated by the district to be used for instructional purposes, or permitted by a teacher for lesson-specific academic assignments, or during an emergency situation, so long as it doesn't interfere with school emergency protocols or first responders or endanger students and staff. The committee recommendation is to adopt option two. And that is my recommendation. That is the recommendation of the administrative team as well. Let me pause here on this one because that's a lot. Is there any discussion or questions? You can. It's quite lengthy. It starts right here. This is the cell phone. This means they are not using it at any time. No passing, no lunch. Exactly. Unless it's in a 504 plan, for an example. Yep. Again, the recommendation of the committee is option two. Okay, 55.
How would that be managed?
Oh, I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, how would that be managed?
Through educating the kids of can't use them while you're at school.
Okay.
We do that.
Just wondering how we can control it, because even today, they're not supposed to be using it and do regularly, so.
I don't know as though we'll ever fully control it because it's such a part of life. But we will do our best to, one, educate, give kids opportunities, and then three, if consequences need to ensue, we would certainly do that.
Do we need to update the handbooks?
So, yes, in the handbooks that I presented a few weeks ago, whichever one you choose here, that will get dropped into the handbook.
I think speaking as a parent, it has improved. I think it takes time. This isn't something that changes overnight, but I think already from not this past year, the year before to this year, a huge improvement for the school, at least at the high school, managing it. So I think it's just going to take time to
It will.
change that, and more people to be, teachers to be involved.
Yeah.
But
I think you're gonna have to educate parents too, that
Yep.
if you got something, you gotta call the office.
Yep.
So, yep, just like the old days.
Just like the old days.
Yep.
Yes.
So generally, they would just be getting suspended and stuff if they're having their phones?
Well, that certainly wouldn't be our first move, no. Our first move would be the education of parents, education of students on the acceptable use of cell phones in school, which, if this policy is adopted, wouldn't be any. So leave it at home, or come to school, leave it in your locker. And then if we see it with you, if we see it with you, we would address it. That address wouldn't default to a suspension immediately. It could progressively lead to a suspension, but it wouldn't be the goal to suspend over a cell phone. Has it happened? Yes. But I think that that's a little bit to Trustee Miller's point, in that sometimes to hold the standard, we have to do that.
So related to dual enrollment in use of personal devices, that would be considered an instructional requirement, and so would be covered?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, a couple more, trustees. 5507, extracurricular activities. There's no board changes. I mentioned this a bit earlier, but the update defines extracurricular activities as district-sponsored optional activities, including athletics, that are not for grade or credit. That part, including athletics, is the new part.
And so marching band is not considered extracurricular?
It is not, because that is for greater credit. Correct. 5710, student suicide prevention. The board has chosen, let me pull it up. The board has chosen option 1, which is the basic policy. This choice was made a few years ago. As we reviewed the updates, there is a option 2, which is a more detailed process that now includes the designation of a suicide prevention coordinator. We had a lot of discussion about this. The policy committee, as well as myself, felt that the designation of a coordinator, someone to serve as a resource, someone to serve as professional development, someone to stay in contact with MDHHS, et cetera, made a lot of sense, and the recommendation from the committee is to move to option 2 from option 1. (5710A), student identification cards. This is an optional policy. You already have it. The change involved adding the suicide prevention hotline number to the actual cards in grades 6 through 12, and the recommendation of the committee is to keep this policy as is, and that number is already on our cards. And last one, 5714, threat assessment and response. There's no board choices. The policy had language updates reflecting changes to the law. And that is the policy package from Troon.
Regarding the identification cards, do we also have okay to say information on the card?
I will check on that one. I want to say yes, but let me confirm it. Any other discussion regarding the policy package from Troon? Okay. Last up tonight for discussion then is the Schools of Choice, the second window. Trustees, it is my recommendation that we open a second Schools of Choice window for students in grades 1st through 5th. So just a little context, you might remember from last spring when we opened we did open an unlimited Schools of Choice window for kids in Young 5 and kindergarten, as well as grades 6 through 12. That remains open. I am recommending that we add a second window for grades 1 through 5 because we have a bit of space availability yet in those grades. We don't have a ton of seats, but we have a little bit. And we've had some expression of interest from families looking at enrolling their children in the Tecumseh Public Schools, and it would be my recommendation that we open a second window. That window would run from July 20th through August 6th. Which would give us, we know who the families are, we'll call them, would give us time for them to fill out the appropriate paperwork, for us to enroll them, get all their documents so they're ready for school on the 17th. Any questions on that?
No questions. I was just going to point out that we are going to vote on that one today.
It is a bit time sensitive, so yes, thank you. Okay, President Brooks, back to you.
We're good? All right, then we can go to consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Roll call vote, trustee Davis.
Aye.
Trustee McGee.
Aye.
Trustee Miller. Aye. Trustee Lewis.
Aye.
Trustee Simpson.
Aye.
Trustee Martinez.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. That will take us into some additional action items.
I move to approve the Airmark Food Service yearly contract renewal as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote. Trustee McGee.
Aye.
Trustee Lewis.
Aye.
Trustee Miller. Aye. Trustee Davis.
Aye.
Trustee Martinez.
Aye.
Trustee Simpson.
Aye.
And chair votes aye.
I move to approve the TPS building handbook as written and presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on handbooks? Roll call vote. Trustee Martinez.
Aye.
Trustee Simpson.
Aye.
Trustee Miller. Trustee Lewis.
Aye.
Trustee McGee.
Aye.
Trustee Davis.
Aye.
And chair votes aye.
I move to approve the TPS preschool handbook as written and presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the preschool handbook. Trustee Martinez? Trustee Simpson?
Aye.
Trustee Miller? Trustee Lewis?
Aye.
Trustee Davis?
Aye.
Trustee McGee?
Aye.
And chair votes aye.
I move to approve the TVA handbook as written and presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for the TVA handbook. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Trustee Martinez? Trustee Miller? Trustee Lewis?
Aye.
Trustee McGee?
Aye.
Trustee Davis?
Aye.
Trustee Simpson?
Aye.
And chair votes aye.
I move to approve the child care handbook as written and presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for the child care handbook. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Trustee Lewis?
Aye.
Trustee McGee?
Aye.
Trustee Davis?
Aye.
Trustee Miller? Trustee Martinez? Trustee Simpson?
Aye.
And chair votes aye.
I move to approve the TPS 2026-27 fee schedule as written and presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the fee schedule as written. Trustee Davis?
Aye.
Trustee McGee?
Aye.
Trustee Lewis?
Aye.
Trustee Miller? Trustee Martinez? Trustee Simpson?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
I move to approve the school of choice second window as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to open a second window for school of choice. Roll call vote. Trustee Miller? Trustee Martinez? Trustee Simpson?
Aye.
Trustee Lewis?
Aye.
Trustee McGee?
Aye.
Trustee Davis?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Pursuant to Section 8C of the Open Meetings Act, I move that we enter closed session to discuss negotiations.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to go into closed session for negotiations. Roll call vote. Trustee Davis?
Aye.
Trustee McGee?
Aye.
Trustee Lewis?
Aye.
Trustee Miller? Trustee Martinez? Trustee Simpson? And the chair votes aye. We are in closed session as of 7:42. We are back in open session at 8:42. And I will take a board discussion. Any more discussion, or are we discussed out?
I just have a couple of points real quick.
Sure.
Just pertaining to some of the stuff that we talked about today. So the policy group meets as needed. Maybe that could be more frequently to work on the board operating procedures because that's a pretty big document. So I don't know if that could happen.
It comes in at once. That's the Troon policies that we were referencing?
No, I was just talking about, we set our committee dates and the policy committee meets ad hoc.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
We typically meet quarterly, but,
okay.
sorry.
I guess I'm just asking that to be a heightened priority for us this year. The comment on the cell phone policy, it's not necessarily pertaining to the cell phone, but what I've seen almost a bigger issue with is Chromebook communication. So they can't have their cell phone in class, so they use whatever chat functions on their Chromebook, and to me, that's almost a bigger challenge maybe in classroom. I'm sorry? Okay. Well, it still happens quite regularly as far as activity. And just a random thought here. I've been thinking about it for a while, but since we're talking about bigger changes, and maybe this is for the planning session, but maybe we could think about something about finals. Like, maybe they don't all have to be tests. Like, if we're talking about real comprehension, application to the real world, being flexible and adaptable, showcasing those softer skills and things like that, maybe it's some type of final project. And that may happen from class to class, but maybe more effort around that versus passing a grade at the end, and that goes into your grade. I would rather see someone actually comprehending something, applying that, and maybe making use of it in a project. But just a thought, and that's all I have.
All right, with that, I will take a motion to,
A second.
oh, sorry.
I just want to make a comment to the finals comment. I'm fine with that as long as they start writing essays, Hilton.
I can't believe that they took the essay section. Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree.
I move we adjourn.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned.